Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Don Eindhoven, and I am the founder of the Dutch Cyber Warfare community. You are watching clips recorded from our 22nd Roundtable event held on December 3rd, 2020. We called it the Corona Edition. This is the seventh speaker out of our set of 10, Jeff Bardin. Jeff Bardin is the Chief Intel Officer for Treadstone 71 and a genuine expert in cyber intelligence gathering tradecraft. In 2007, he was awarded the RSA Conference Award for Excellence in the field of security practices. Jeff's team also won the 2007 award for Best Security Team from SC Magazine. He served in the U.S. Air Force as a cryptologic linguist and in the U.S. Army as a U.S. Army National Guard officer. Jeff has spoken at RSA Conference in the U.S. and in London, at NATO's Cyber Conflict Conference in Estonia, the U.S. Naval Academy, the Air Force Institute of Technology, Johns Hopkins Research Lab, Hacker Halted, and numerous other locations. He teaches, among other things, the intelligence gathering process and online tradecraft. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Bardin.
Background going on. Our next speaker actually is a spy, an old spy, I would say. Jeff Bardin has had at least an intelligence background. He's always very shady about this. I've never been able to draw a straight answer from him on this, and I'm not going to try again tonight. You're lacking the Hawaiian shirt tonight, Jeff, with that background.
No Hawaiian shirts today, but I do live down in South Florida, so it is tropical, so I figured I'd put up a screen that kind of represents that. So
Did you move to Boston?
No, I moved out of Massachusetts 3 years ago.
Oh, you did? I didn't catch that. Well,
I didn't put it out there because when you don't want anybody to know, you don't put it out there. But then publish your address, it really doesn't matter much. So
no, it doesn't help. For the audience, Jeff has always also taught a cyber intelligence class, and he once challenged his class to find out about him, and being the professional that he is, he thought he'd close off all the avenues, and he was very interested in the results. And essentially, I think they came back with a picture of your knee. Isn't that right? An explanation of your operation that you had once. That was pretty impressive. So you taught him well.
Yeah, there was a picture of my hip.
Your hip, that was it. Yeah.
I have aftermarket parts, so yeah.
That was a real very anecdote. Yeah.
The real interesting thing that they did is they took it a step further, and they created me as an actor. And if you look up Jeff Scott Bardin on IMDb, I starred in Shaving Ryan's Privates, a porn movie. And so they posted it up there, and they were kind of sheepish about it because they said, "Geez, I'm sorry we did this." And I said, "No, that's fantastic. Leave it there." And it's still there today. So just every once in a while, someone comes across that and asks, "Is this really you?" I said, "Absolutely, it's me. Of course it is." So which is.
I'm going to share that link in the chat in a bit. That's really.
It's under Jeff Scott Bardin, Shaving Ryan's Privates.
They saved you the humiliation of not putting your picture in there, but it's not.
Well, it was there at one time, but I did have them actually remove that. But otherwise, I left it up there. But it kind of ties right into kind of what we're talking about. I just want to do a quick conversation on conspiracy theories. Being here in the U.S.
And then I'll give you the floor, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Bardin.
All right. So hopefully you got my screen up here. Conspiracy theories have been something that have been pretty wild here in the United States for the past few years for whatever reason, right? Hard to tell, but if we go back a few years and we look at where a lot of these conspiracy theories come from, and of course there's always the evil person behind the screen. We take it back to 1996, and in 1996, story came out, and the story came out about arson against black churches in the South, and there was an alarming increase in these churches being burned. And so at the time, our president at the time was President Clinton. He got on a radio address, spoke about it, spoke about his vivid memories as a child back in Arkansas, painful, vivid memories of black churches being burned in Arkansas back then. This turned into a new law being passed. Council of World Churches were condemning the U.S. for racism surrounding these acts. There was this Church Fire Prevention Act. There was $12 million put behind it. And another $9 million was being raised on the outside that was averaging around $100,000 a day. And this is back in 1996 dollars. So all this money was being put out there because of this massive amount of number of black churches being burned in the South, and they just want to put an end to it. The problem is, well, this is it started on false premises, and it was put out there by a couple of church groups, the National Council of Churches and Center for Democratic Revival, that were actually tied back to Russia. And this never occurred. There was not an increase in these black churches, but it shows that conspiracy theories and divisions being sown by adversaries against the United States or the West are not just commonplace in the past few years. These conspiracies and methods have been propagating and expanding ever since the advent of the internet and the way that we can push information so much faster, the way it is today. So when you look at that, a lot of people still look at that today, and they still believe that because history still talks about that time as being these massive increase of black churches burning. So if you're on the screen here too, there's a chart that says a chart of coercion. And if you look at this chart and you try and think of it relative to things that have been going on with respect to influence operations and social media, mimetic engineering or memes being pushed out there, and different false narratives being pushed into the media, and the growth of social media platforms and how they just run rampant with false information, and it gets repeated over and over without any credibility checking, without any validity of the background. But you look at this chart of coercion, you say, my God, this could be something we use today, right? And in fact, a lot of people have looked at this chart, and they are using it now in conspiracy theories in the U.S. Relative to COVID-19. And so they're tying in this chart. Now, this chart actually comes from the Bitterman report. The Bitterman report was back in the 50s when the U.S. Analyzed North Korean and Chinese tactics on captured Americans and how they actually tried to turn them to get information out of them, as well as possibly even brainwash them into doing things. So now we've got this tied into a foreign adversary, but now it's being used by the deep state in the U.S. If people haven't heard of the deep state, this is this underground cabal of elitists that are running the government, and they are against, have been against the current administration. They are dealing in child trafficking, and it's just an amazing number of conspiracy theories that just go through this. But this whole chart of coercion from this Mr. Bitterman back in the 1950s is actually being brought to fore as this is what they're doing to us today in this realm of conspiracy theories that are out there. And people are buying into this. It's an amazing number of people. We've seen people elected to the U.S. House of Representatives who are conspiracy theorists who believe in the QAnon conspiracies, or Q. Again, if you don't know Q, this is this deep state, deep in the intelligence bowels of intelligence community of the United States that knows what's going on and is watching the deep state activities, and they have the QAnon drops, and QAnon information comes out, and it's Q ties to this Q clearance that's related to the Department of Energy that's likened to a top secret clearance. Anyway, this whole conspiracy theory has taken on a whole new, it's almost like it's a separate party in the United States. People are believing in the deep state, and they're saying people are trying to control you. They're trying to get you to obey, right? They're trying to, the election was rigged at, there's just so many things going on every day. There's something new that pops up that is just fantastical and just incredible. We're seeing conspiracy theories. If you look at COVID-19, and it's caused from 5G, right? The electromagnetic spectrum out there, and waves and photons are being used to inject into you biological particles. Bill Gates wants the vaccines to come out so we can inject microchips into you. COVID-19 is a biological weapon that the U.S. sent to China. Genetically modified crops are actually helping cause the spread of COVID-19. Drinking cow urine and bathing in it will help you get rid of some of the COVID-19 symptoms, as well as possibly get rid of it altogether. Disney Plus is actually behind it because as soon as COVID hit, Disney Plus was released, and that forced people to stay at home and subscribe to Disney. Eating garlic stops it. Vodka is a great hand sanitizer. What a waste, right? It's just amazing. Even Greta Thunberg caused COVID-19 so we could slow down our attack on the climate and improve climate change. So it's just an amazing amount of noise and garbage out there, but people believe this, and they're believing it for whatever reasons. And there's several studies on why they believe it, and there's several ways on how to talk to conspiracy theorists. I'm not going to get into that. I can share that information with you later, but just an amazing amount of data out there that is just pushed out daily. Now, there's anti-vaxxers, people who are against vaccinations in the U.S., and this one Senator Jensen, who's also a doctor out of Minnesota, he's very much an anti-vaxxer. So I did some searches on Dr. Jensen to find out some information about him, and as I was clicking information about him, this flash on the screen popped up, and I was able to grab it a little bit later, and you can see the screen, this Harbox QAnon supporters - happy with Fox News segment, and it popped up. And on the right-hand side, there was this Russian note that popped up and actually started to drop some malware, try to drop malware into my VM in this case. So the conspiracy theories now are being combined with malware and this misinformation to push this out. So we found just one of amazing number of things that is tying in conspiracy theories with malware to manipulating your desktop, taking it over, controlling it, and so on. It's just an amazing amount of noise out there that's going on. And there's also the attempt to split the West apart with respect to NATO. We talked about NATO a little bit earlier, where NATO is never going to survive. Europe is a danger to Ukraine because of the gas. Italy is being punished by the EU for supporting traditional values. We've got the EU has Nazi roots. Pope Francis is part of the George Soros global Zionist conspiracy. Everything is there to separate and to divide. I mean, even the Notre Dame fire was actually a satanic ritual. So you look at this and you just start to wonder, oh my God, there's just so much noise out here that is going on. How do we stop this? How do we defend against this? And really, the advent of social media has just blown this out of proportion to the point where you can't stop it unless you regulate social media. And we've seen some of that where they put some disclaimers on Donald Trump's posts and shut some of them down because they're just absolutely false, incredibly false. But this is a danger. It's a significant danger to what we face out there, and it's a fear I have. I mean that's. I'm going to stop sharing here, and because I know we're going to run out of time here closely, but it's an amazing thing that we're seeing with respect to social media being an avenue to allow for this type of data to flow. If you go back to World War I, World War II, even the Korean War, the only way you could get messages out in front of the populace was through newspapers. And now it's at a touch of a button, right? That's a touch of a button.
Yeah, that's really... I'm just floored. I mean, what surprises me is that traditionally, we have a saying here in the Netherlands that we are 10 years less crazy than the U.S. And by that, we mean stuff that happens over there, we see a couple of years later. And what really strikes me in this is that what I see on some of the main news platforms like Change Style, which is like they call it far right, but really it's everywhere. It's all across the spectrum. They're really just about providing the rioting kind of element. And what we see here now is that all of the crazy shit that we see in the U.S. when it comes to conspiracy theories, we see, like, very quickly, we see an uptake on those exact same theories here in the Netherlands, which is new and very worrying indeed. Do you have any kind of, do you suspect that there's like a network of people that are propagating this shit worldwide?
Well, I think it's targeted. If you look at Russian propagation, the Internet Research Agency, and what they did in the 2016 election and what they've tried to do, certainly it's part of this hybrid warfare effect of combining soft power with the military. If I can subvert a country and their people by accentuating their divisions and creating those divisions, whether they're real or not, and then amplifying that message, then I can actually create a cause out there that says that democracy doesn't work, that the institutions in the U.S. are not going to function. And here is my proof. Look at what's been going on, right? Look at the riots. Look at all these things that are going on in the U.S. right now. There's proof positive. And by the way, we have a solution for you over here, right? And it's much better. So.
And that's, of course, the Russian solution, whatever that might be at that time.
Yes.
But
the Russian solution.
Would you say that we Europeans are like collateral damage, like a bonus to you to Russian disinformation operations, or are we targeted more closely than we might realize here?
Oh, I think you're directly targeted, absolutely directly targeted, because as part of NATO, as part of the EU, you've got two things that they want to divide and separate from, right? They want to get rid of those two things. And if we can divide and conquer, if we can create separation, if we can create dissent in your country, dissent between countries, then we've achieved it, right? So you may be collateral damage to some aspects of it, just as the United States is relative to how you're being targeted. So I think absolutely you're being targeted, completely, absolutely. It's part of that separation to change the dynamics, the global hegemony and the U.S. domination, right, and the Western view of it. So, yeah, it's a concerted effort. It's long term, and they're patient.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's definitely something that we should collectively keep in mind when we look at the internet and the news that we get piped into our skulls, which is really what's going on. I'm looking at the clock. Man, we could talk forever, like with every other speaker that we've had so far. It's been brilliant. Jeff, thank you so much for being here and giving us this talk. I hope to meet you again in person real quick, and we can exchange cigars again.
Yeah.
I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Till the next time, my friend.
Very good.